Hi everyone, in this video we will discuss how to find out sum of different basic series in Python. Now let's begin with a very simple program. We have to find out the sum of this sequence, that is 2 square plus 4 square plus 6 square, like this. So the program will be like this. First of all, we have to take how many values you have to calculate. So you have to input the value for n. So once you get the number n, then you have to find out the sum of the square of these digits starting from 2. So we will take a variable sum which is initialized with 0. Now in a for loop, I will range from 2 till n plus 1 and the step value is 2. So the values will be 2, 4, 6 like this. So we have to find out the square of all these values. So I square, you have to find out I to the power 2. You have to use exponentiation operator over here. Now whatever value you will get, you have to just add it with the sum. So sum is equal to sum plus I to the power 2. Now after the for loop, you have to print the sum of the series is sum. So you can see once you run the program, it will ask you to enter a value. Let's say the value entered is, let's say 8. Then it will give you the output like this: 2 square plus 4 square plus 6 square plus 8 square. Okay, so since we had taken the range is I in range 2 to n plus 1 and step value is 2. So it will calculate like this. I value will be 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. So 2 square plus 4 square plus 6 square plus 8 square will give you 120. Now the next sequence is like this: 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 plus till 1 by n. So we have to input the value for n. So here you can see first 1 can be written as 1 by 1. So the sequence is like this: 1 by 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 like this till 1 by n. So first of all, we have to give the value for n. Then sum is a variable which is initialized with 0 to give the sum of this series. Now I will range from 1 to n plus 1. Sum is equal to sum plus 1 divided by I. So every time we want to find out 1 by I. I value is ranging from 1 to n plus 1. So I will have values 1, 2, 3 till n. And every time we have to find out 1 by I. And that you have to add and store in a variable sum. Then after the for loop, we can just print sum of the series is sum. And here it may give you long decimal values. So to avoid that, you can just use a round function. And you can round it up to some certain digits after decimal point. Here I have given 3. So it will be rounded up to 3 digits after decimal point. So once you run the program, it will ask you to enter the value for n, and let's say the value entered is 5. So it will give you the output as sum of this series is 2.283. Now this series is little bit different. You can see here it is 1 minus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 minus 1 by 4. Like this it will continue up to n terms. So what to do over here? First of all, you have to take the value of n as input, and you can initialize the variable sum with 0 to store the sum of this series. Now for I in range 1 to n plus 1, if I is divisible by 2, or else you can see if I is an even number, then term becomes minus 1 by I. Otherwise term is normal 1 by I or plus 1 by I. Okay, so I will iterate from, let's say the input value is 5, then I will range from 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So for those values where I is divisible by 2, that means I is an even number, then the term will become negative. That means minus 1 by I. That means if I is 2, then the term will be minus 1 by 2. And if I is 4, then the term will be minus 1 by 4. But if I is 3, then it will be plus 1 by 3, because that is an odd number. So like this, your terms will continue. So I have taken a variable term and have stored it as a positive value or a negative value by checking the condition. Now finally add all these terms together and store in a variable sum. So sum is equal to sum plus term. Then after the for loop, we can just print the sum of the series is sum, and you can also use a round function to round it up to some digit. So once you run the program, it will ask you to give a value for n. Let's say the value entered is 5. Now the calculated sum of the series is 0.783. Now the same program can be done in a little different way. We can just check it how to do this. So same thing, first of all, you have to take the value of n. Now sum is initialized with 0. For I in range n, here we are taking the range as 0 to n. Earlier we used to take I in range 1 to n plus 1, but here I will range from 0 to n minus 1. Now term is a variable which will store minus 1 to the power I into 1 by I plus 1. Okay, so that will give you the positive or the negative term that will be calculated like this. Now sum is equal to sum plus term. You can see sum of the series is sum. So what here is actually happening? If you run the program and enter the value for n is let's say 3, then what will happen? Here I will range from 0 to 2. That means the possible values for I are 0, 1 and 2. So when I value is 0, then term will be minus 1 to the power 0 into 1 by 1. I plus 1 is 1. So minus 1 to the power 0 is plus 1. Plus 1 into 1 by 1, that will give you the first term as 1. Now the next term is like this. When I value is 1, then term is equal to minus 1 to the power 1. Minus 1 to the power 1 will be minus 1. Then into 1 by I plus 1. I plus 1 is 2. So into 1 by 2. So finally your term will be minus 1 by 2. Similarly, when I value is 2, then term is equal to minus 1 to the power 2 into 1 by I plus 1, that is 1 by 3. So minus 1 to the power 2 will give you plus 1. So plus 1 into 1 by 3, that is 1 by 3. So here you can see each alternate term becomes negative. So when I value is 0, you will get a positive term. When I value is 1, you will get a negative term. Again, I value is 2, it will give you positive term. So we have taken as minus 1 to the power I. So I value is 0 means it will give you minus 1 to the power 0 plus 1. I value 1 means minus 1 to the power 1, that is minus 1. That means if I value is 0 or any even number, then it will give you a positive number. And if I value is an odd number, then it will give you a negative number. So accordingly, your terms will become positive and negative alternately. So finally, you will get the output like this. Now we will find out the sum of another series, that is 1 by 2 plus 3 by 5 plus 5 by 8, like this, let's say up to 7 terms. So here you can just notice the pattern like this. First value in a numerator value is 1 and denominator value is 2. And a second fraction, numerator is 3 and denominator is 5. In the third fraction, numerator is 5 and denominator is 8. So you can see here numerators are increasing by 2 and the denominators are increasing by 3. So this is the pattern actually. So we'll take two variables n to store the first numerator value, that is 1, and another variable d to store the first denominator value, that is 2. Now we'll initialize to one variable sum with 0 to store the sum of the series. Now for I in range 7, because we have to take up to 7 terms, so we have taken the value as 7. Then sum is equal to sum plus n by d. So first value 1 by 2 will be added. Now n will increased by 2 and d will increased by 3 in each iteration. So the second value of n by d or the fraction will be 3 by 5 and the next value will be 5 by 8 like this. It will generate the terms till there are 7 terms are there. Now it will find out the sum. Within the loop only, it will every time calculate the sum. So finally, it will print the sum of the series is sum. Here also we have rounded the value up to 3 digit. And it's giving the output as sum of the series is 4.301. Now just have a look on this series. This is 1 by 2 minus 3 by 5 plus 5 by 8 minus 7 by 1 like this up to 7 terms. Here you can see the first term is positive, second term is negative, third term is positive. Like this it will continue. So what you have to do over here, same thing. First of all, initialize two variables n and d to represent numerator and denominator and initialize them with 1 and 2 to represent the first term, that is n by d is 1 by 2. Now sum is a variable which is initialized with 0. Now we have to take 7 terms. So for I in range 7, term is equal to minus 1 to the power I into n by d. So in first term, what will happen? I value is 0. So term will be minus 1 to the power 0 into n by t. So as you know, minus 1 to the power 0 is plus 1. So plus 1 into n by t, that means the first term is 1 by 2, that means plus 1 by 2. Now sum is equal to sum plus that term. Now n value will increase by 2 and d value will increase by 3. So in a second iteration, when I value will be 1, then the term will be minus 1 to the power 1. Minus 1 to the power 1 is minus 1. So minus 1 into n by d. That means minus 1 into 3 by 5. So like this it will continue. In the third iteration, when I value is 2, then the term will be minus 1 to the power 2 into n by d. Minus 1 to the power 2. As you know, when minus 1 will have a even power, then it will be a positive one. That means minus 1 to the power 2 is plus 1. Plus 1 into n by d, that is plus 5 by 8. So like this it will continue till 7 terms. Now you can see the sum of the series is round sum. That means you have to round the output. So once you run this, you will get output like this. Sum of the series is 0.534 as we have rounded up to 3 digit after decimal point. So it is giving you the output accordingly. Now here we have to find out the sum of this series, that is 1 factorial plus 2 factorial till n factorial. We have to take n as input. So here we have to use two for loops because first of all we have to find out the factorial of each number, then we have to find out the sum of the terms. So in the outer for loop we will find out the sum of the terms and the inner for loop we will have to find out the factorial of each number. So n will be taken as input, sum is a variable initialized with 0. Now for num in range 1 to n plus 1, that means num will range from 1, 2, 3 till n. Then within that we have initialized a variable f as 1. This variable is used to store the factorial of each number. Now we will start another for loop where we will find out the factorial of each number which is stored in a variable num. So for I in range 1 to num plus 1, f is equal to f into I. So f will store the factorial of that particular number. So as you know, factorial of a number is the product of all numbers starting from 1 till that number. So for I will range from 1 till the number num. And every time these numbers will be multiplied and stored in a variable f. So after that, after the inner for loop, I have just used a print statement to print the factorial of num is f. You can avoid that statement also. You can directly calculate the sum. But this is just for little clarity. I have used this print function after the inner for loop so that you can see the factorial of each number. Then after that, you can just use sum is equal to sum plus f. You can just find out the sum of the factorial of the numbers. So that will be kept within the outer for loop and just after the inner for loop. Then after the execution of the outer for loop, that means once you find out the factorial of each number and the sum of the numbers, then finally you can print sum of the series is sum. So once you run the program, let's say the entered value for n is 5. So it is printing factorial of 1, 1, factorial of 2, 2. Like this, it is finding out the factorial each time and it is adding with the sum. Then finally, you will get the output sum of the series is 153 if you take the input as 5. Now here, the same series little bit modified. 1 by 1 factorial plus 2 by 2 factorial plus till n by n factorial. So the same thing you have to do. In the inner for loop, you have to find out the factorial of each number, and in the outer for loop, you have to find out the summation of each term. But here, one thing you have to notice, the term is not just the factorial of the number, but it is divided with the number. So the first term is 1 by 1 factorial, so it will be sum plus num divided by f. Earlier used to do sum is equal to sum plus f. That means you just want to sum of the factorials of the numbers. But now the factorial of each number will be divided by that particular number. So you can see for num in range 1 to n plus 1, then find out the factorial of each number by using another for loop. And once you get the factorial, your sum will be sum plus num divided by the factorial. And you can see, and one more thing you just notice in the outer for loop, just the first statement is f is equal to 1. That means the factorial is initialized with 1 after each iteration. That means once it will calculate the factorial of one number, then for the next number to be calculated, the factorial value will be again initialized with 1 so that it can store the factorial of the next number. Like this, it will continue. And finally, can print the sum of the series is sum. So once you run the program, let's say the value entered for n is 4. So it will give you the factorial of all these numbers 1, 2, 3 and 4. And it will find out 1 by 1 factorial plus 2 by 2 factorial like this, and you'll get the sum of the series is 2.667. Now here you can see the same series, but earlier it used to start with 1 by 1 factorial, but here it is starting with 1. That means 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial plus 2 by 2 factorial like this up to n terms. So what you have to do, you have to just find out the sum of the this series, that is 1 by 1 factorial plus 2 by 2 factorial that you have done earlier in the last program. The same thing you have to do, but you have to add one extra 1 in the beginning. So just we just have to modify a little bit in this program. Just instead of 0, initialize sum with 1. So once some value will be initialized with 1, that means already there is one value. 1 is there in the sum. Then you just proceed the rest of the things as you have done. Sum is equal to sum plus num divided by f. Now it will continue the series and it will go on adding these values 1 by 1 factorial plus 2 by 2 factorial till n by n factorial. So this is how you can do. Just once you run the program, if you enter the value for n as 4, then you can see the sum of the series is 3.667. Now this series is modified like this, that is 1 by 1 factorial minus 2 by 2 factorial plus 3 by 3 factorial minus 4 by 4 factorial like this. That means the first term is positive, second term is negative, third term is positive like this up to n terms. So you have to take the variable n, then sum is initialized with 0. Now for num in range 1 to n plus 1, that means it will iterate through each term. Now f is initialized with 1 to store the factorial of each number. Now after finding the factorial, you have to calculate the term. The term value will be minus 1 to the power num minus 1 into num divided by f. So this is how you can calculate. So when your num value is 1, then the first term is minus 1 to the power num minus 1, that is 0. Minus 1 to the power 0 into num divided by f. Num is 1 divided by factorial of number. Like this it will continue. That means if you enter the value for n as 4, then num will range from 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. So when num value is 1, your term will become minus 1 to the power 0 into 1 by 1 factorial. As you know, minus 1 to the power 0 is plus 1. So plus 1 into 1 by 1 factorial, that is 1 by 1 factorial. So when num is equal to 2, then term is equal to minus 1 to the power num minus 1, that is 1. So minus 1 to the power 1, as you know, it is minus 1. So minus 1 into 2 by 2 factorial. Then when num is 3, then term becomes minus 1 to the power 2. So minus 1 to the power 2 is plus 1. So plus 3 by 3 factorial. So like this it will continue. So each time you have to find out the term because each time your term changes its sign, once positive then negative. So this is how you can find out the positive and negative terms. For first term it is positive, so you have to take minus 1 to the power num minus 1. Num is initialized with 1, so 1 minus 1 0, so your first term is a positive term. Like this, once num value will increase, the term value will also be positive and negative accordingly. Then factorial of each number, once you calculate, you just have to divide it with the number and multiply with the positive or the negative sign. Then sum is equal to sum plus term. So finally you will get the output as sum of the series is 0.333. Now the next series is like this: 1 minus 2 square by 2 factorial plus 3 cube by 3 factorial minus 4 to the power 4 by 4 factorial plus 5 to the power 5 by 5 factorial. Like this it is going on. So what is the pattern? You can just think of the first term is 1, that can be thought of as 1 square divided by 1 factorial minus 2 square divided by 2 factorial. So like this we'll just do just as you did in the previous program. Same thing you have to do. So you have to use two for loops. First for loop is to iterate through the terms, and second for loop is to calculate the factorial. So while finding out the term, it will be same minus 1 to the power num minus 1 into num to the power num divided by f. Earlier it was only num divided by f, but here num to the power num. So when number is 2, so it will be 2 to the power 2 divided by 2 factorial. When number is 3, it is 3 to the power 3 divided by 3 factorial, like this. And the previous part, that is minus 1 to the power num minus 1, will give you the positive or negative sign. So you can see here, once you run the program, let's say the entered value for n is 7, then it will calculate the sum of the series as 117.476. So what it is doing for the first term, it is minus 1 to the power 1 minus 1. Num value is 1. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Minus 1 to the power 0 is plus 1 into 1 to the power 1 divided by 1 factorial. So finally it will give you the first term, that is 1. For the second term, it is minus 1 to the power num minus 1, that is 2 minus 1. Minus 1 to the power 1, that is minus 1 into 2 square divided by 2 factorial. So minus 2 to the power 2 by 2 factorial. That is the second term. Like this it will go on till n terms, whatever value will put for n. Finally it will give you the sum of the series. Now here ends this sum of series or sequence programs. Here we have just calculated the sum of some basic series or sequences by using for loop. And if there is any doubt, you can put it in comment section, and stay tuned for more solutions. and do subscribe. Thank you.